Hello and welcome to Dear Diary. Dear Diary is a narrative series that tells the story of an African woman. It is interesting, educative, and entertaining. New episodes are uploaded on Mondays. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Dear Diary. Papa returned from the village on Tuesday. He was told about Silas's proposal to Victoria, and he was happy Mama didn't collect the bottles of wine they had brought. Silas, however, has not given up yet. He keeps calling Victoria and pleading with her to have a rethink and reconsider her decision. Victoria says there's no way she can even consider spending the rest of her life with Silas. I tried asking Victoria why she's so bent on rejecting Silas. Turns out there is more to it than meets the eyes. Victoria told me Silas was her senior in secondary school and he was even the senior prefect. He always took good care of her back then and made sure she ate during break. However, Silas was a dictator. He always wanted things to go his way, and when things didn't go the way he wanted, he would do everything to twist things to his favor. Silas had always said he could never be controlled by a woman, and that a woman should not get too educated, because if she did, she would take over her home. Years passed, and he held on to that negative and backward mentality. Recently, when Victoria and Silas had met again, Victoria brought up conversations about women's rights, female emancipation, and things like that, just to know if he had changed his mind. His responses proved he had gone even deeper into his backward beliefs about the inferiority of the African woman. Victoria, therefore, was not ready to settle with someone who only sees her as a cook, a cleaner, and perhaps a slave. Silas has a very calm demeanor. It was very surprising to hear things like this about him. Victoria even told me he always beat up his younger sister and that their dad always beat up their mom. Apparently, the men in their family had no regards for women. Who would think an educated man would still have such backward reasoning in the 21st century? After hearing all this, there wasn't much I could say. I understood Victoria perfectly, and I agreed with her. She had done the right thing. I had not finished digesting all that Victoria had told me about Silas when I heard screams coming from Auntie Adassa's house. We all rushed there, only to find Auntie Adassa on the floor, screaming and gasping. As we got inside, we saw her husband beating her up mercilessly. Prosper quickly got in and pulled Uncle Jojo away from Auntie Adassa. Auntie Adassa had been terribly injured. Her face was swollen. There were clots of blood on her arms, elbows, and knees. There was a large cut on her right arm, and one of her eyes was so swollen it could barely open. A few other neighbors got in, and she was quickly rushed to the hospital. Prosper, out of anger, punched Uncle Jojo on the face and blood oozed out of his nostrils. I and the other neighbors held Prosper back, though I was secretly happy he did that. What could have made Uncle Jojo beat off his wife so badly? I couldn't wait to hear the full story. I was so eager to hear what had happened. A few minutes later, Uncle Jojo was explaining what had happened at the top of his voice to anyone who cared to listen. Apparently, the reason Uncle Jojo had not been going out lately was because he had lost his job. He was one of the salesmen in a supermarket in town. He had been stealing goods and selling to people at extremely low prices. He had his ways, but one day, he ran out of luck and was cut. He was immediately laid off. When he got home, he didn't tell his wife, but lied to her that he was on leave. Auntie Adassa had discovered the dismissal letter in Uncle Jojo's suitcase when she was searching for money to cook that morning. That, along with receipts from exquisite restaurants in town. She was very angry to find out Uncle Jojo had been spending money carelessly while she barely had enough to eat and take care of her personal needs. When she confronted him about it, he was bold enough to admit that he was spending his money on women who were better than Auntie Adassa, and that the only reason he had been staying home was because he was penniless. The heated argument soon led to exchange of slaps and then the brutal and merciless beating of Auntie Adassa. I felt so disappointed at him. Victoria and I both looked at each other, consciously or unconsciously comparing Uncle Jojo to Silas. If this is what marriage is, I don't want to get married, I said to myself. Auntie Adassa spent 3 days in the hospital. Mama paid her a visit every day. In fact, she went there with food and water. She practically took care of her for all those 3 days. Her husband could not even afford the hospital bills. It was Manka's mom that paid the bills. She wanted to have Uncle Jojo arrested, but he pleaded and pleaded. He promised never to lay his hands on Auntie Adassa again. Manka's mom made Uncle Jojo sign an undertaking, promising to treat his wife right and never lay his hands on her again. I know Auntie Adassa and I don't quite get along, for whatever reason, but seeing her in that state made me realize how much I love her. I went to see her every evening at the close of work. I always bought her fruits and soya. Until this very moment, I feel very sorry for her. To think that Uncle Jojo got married to her when she was in Form 4, just her 4th year of secondary school. He had promised to send her to school after marriage, but no sooner had the promise been made than had it been forgotten. And there he was, insulting her and calling her an illiterate, telling her he cheats on her with educated and working class women. How sad. Dear diary, today, equality is the word. No matter my status in society, be it financial or social, no matter my gender, I should never make another feel less human. I should learn to see the good in others and make them feel important and worthy. I should always make the people around me realize their worth. I should treat others exactly the same way I would want to be treated.